You are now entering the Thick Goddess Energy Morning Show. We in the building. High priestess in the building, didn't let my fears kill me. Transmuted my pain in that cleanse in the rain. Found out I was working and I conquered my demons. I accepted my purpose and the goddess I became. And we're live. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is your Thick Goddess Energy Morning Show. I'm your host, Divine Moon Goddess, and this is my co host, Oracle Empress. This show is brought to you by Divine Moon Goddess Healers and Readings.com, where I was waiting on your .com.
Oh, God, I forgot about it.
Where all your questions are answered. And as we let the notifications go out and people join us, oh, I hear the notifications.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, this morning, this is Friday, December 10th. Today's show will be a little bit triggering, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be triggering this morning. As we're going to get into and talk about one, the triggering term Black Lives Matter, because that triggers a lot of people just to hear that, because a lot of people hear that and it's just like, all lives matter, you know. I didn't even understand the concept when it first came out. And so I do hope to on one of these shows actually have someone, a representative from Black Lives Matter, to come on and we have a conversation just about the background of it and the nature of it. But this show is really going to go into talking about how clueless we fucking are in society. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up, because I happened to come across, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
I came across this show, and I don't know who else has watched this, called The 13th, and it's about the 13th Amendment, which when they abolished slavery, basically in the 13th Amendment says no person can be held as a slave, no person can be enslaved in America unless you're a prisoner. And that clause then was taken and reformed and used to start to enslave people a different way. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because I thought, we know this. It's not something that we don't. The biggest thing I think about this is that it's not something that we don't know, right? None of us in 2021 can actually sit back and say that we don't know this is happening, that we don't know in the jails more than half of the population is either Black or Afro-Latin, right? We can't say that we don't know this. It just, I
You got a scammer.
already got a scammer.
Mm-hmm. I love that name, though. It's like Alpha Watatini A. Josh. Really? Okay.
It's crazy because I was going through my notifications today and I had to like block and delete so many people who were writing reviews about all these witch doctors. It's crazy. Yeah. So, anywho, so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up today. Good morning, Sasha. Is that we can be so clueless. And I actually started crying in this. I was just telling Oracle. I actually started crying watching it. It's about an hour or some. I would say watch it. I actually watched it on YouTube. So I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but I actually came across it because I'm always searching shit up on YouTube. And YouTube is always bringing me documentaries because I'm a big documentary fan. I'm always watching shit like that because I love knowledge. But this one actually did get to me in my heart space. And I did start crying last night about it because even I felt bad. I felt bad for being so clueless because when it doesn't happen to you and it's not happening to your family,
Mm-hmm.
you don't give a fuck at the end of the day. Not really. You'll sit back and you'll say, oh, that's sad. That's horrible. That's horrible that that's happening to that family. But you won't fucking get up. You won't do nothing. You won't become active. You won't get out in your community. And we all sit here and say to ourselves, like, what can we do more? And it's like, what the hell? What is wrong with this? Just before we get too far into it, what do you feel just about that part of?
Well, you remember I was really triggered with um, George Floyd because
Yeah.
I was in Minnesota. I
Right.
think, what did I leave? Like the day before I think it happened.
I remember that.
And I have sons that were in Minnesota at the time, teenage sons. Um, and so that hit me hugely when that happened. And I know it triggered a lot of people, especially with Black Lives Matter, but it also triggered a lot of people with the looting where they
Right.
couldn't understand it, and it was so horrible. And um, I was one of the people that was like, tear it up, burn it all down, tear it up. And
Right.
everyone was like, how dare you? How
Right.
dare you? And I'm like, no, you don't get it. So I still feel like there's a lot of people that don't get it. Even all the way down to destroying a neighborhood or destroying a whole city, like they don't
No.
get it. And so it's hard for me. But with black young men, it's always been something that I've had to worry about. And everyone is always like, is it easier to raise boys or girls? And although it's easier raise raise, I can't say it's easier to raise boys or girls. I think it's easier to raise girls because at the end of the day, something that has always been on my mind because of where we lived was just that one of my children was going to end up dead
Right.
or in jail all
Right.
the time. And it happened. Like it clearly happened. So the George Floyd thing hit me really, really hard. And it still does. I know the Aubrey, I can't think off the top of my head what his first name is. I just watched it again the other day. His
Mm.
trial just came to a close. And then also in Minnesota, we have, I don't remember if you remember hearing the story, but a couple months, was it a year? Maybe it was a year after George Floyd. I can't remember. But there was another young man, black man, don't think he was over the age of 20, that was shot when she pulled him over and said that she was reaching for her taser.
Mm.
And so now she's on trial right
Mm.
now in Minnesota for that one.
Wasn't it like, yeah, she was reaching for the taser or they, but ended up
Yeah,
shooting.
she shot him, she killed
Right.
him.
Right.
And then she claimed she thought it was her taser. And it's like, you're a police officer. You thought
Right.
you're going
And I think that's on there. I think it's actually on there because there's a one, they kind of went through a lot of different stories in that 13th show where I think they were showing that and it's like, oh my God, I shot him. Oh my God,
yeah.
and it's like, I do feel one, our society is failing our young population, especially
100%.
amongst the Black population. And like I said, like I've watched this stuff and even like I would get angry in the point of why are you burning the city down? Why are you fucking up your own neighborhood, right? Because I don't get it. And last night I got it. Like it hit
Mhm.
me last night of you don't get it because one, you haven't had to raise boys. Don't know what that feels like. Until now, thinking about my grandsons, now it hits different. It fucking hits different, and
Mhm.
that is the unfortunate, like I would say, lack of knowledge and lack of anyone instilling that in me in my life. I was in California in the '90s, the riots in the '90s when um,
Mhm.
what's his name got taken out of the and beaten. What was his name? Rodney, Rodney,
Rodney King.
that whole situation, right? And then so it trickled from LA all the way to where we were at in San Bernardino. And I remember when it was going down and everything was happening, I remember my mom and them keeping us inside. Like they did not want us outside. And you could see all hell was
Mhm.
breaking loose everywhere. And even having to watch that, like, damn, like what the fuck is like going on and being very terrified of like what's going on outside, but still not really getting it or understanding it, right?
Mhm.
I just feel like we got to do better because even when you look at it in the culture, when does the culture do something different? Like, it's crazy that we can sit and talk about it, right? And we can blame the police and we can blame everybody, but when do we all stand up and say enough is enough? Like, when do we get out there and say, no, we need to do something to educate, to legislate, or get out here and start
Mhm.
to change the way these fucking laws are? When do we, like, most people, if it's not hitting their home, they don't give a fuck. Why
Yeah,
is that? And that probably hit me more than anything. It's just like, it's not that we don't know this shit is going on. We know what's going on right in front of us. And my heart goes out to any mother of boys, especially if their skin is darker, because it doesn't matter what their race is. As soon as they have a tint on their skin, they are deemed black. And that's how it is, regardless. And we know it comes from, African roots. We know where it comes from. And then it's just unfortunate that, like, that's the mother, or the, even like the jail system. So let's get into that. So how we talked about how they really went into the jail reform, not reform, but pushing criminals in the three strike law. And so you have, like, what, over 1 million people that are in these jails. I want to go over
mhm,
some stats that I saw today, where, of course, it's 5 times higher for blacks to be in jail than whites, but you have 1 in 81 black adults in the U.S. basically are incarcerated or serving some damn term, right? A lot of them are minor. And it's crazy, when the crack epidemic happened, people were going to jail for crack, right? But cocaine users, which was in suburban areas, right? Because we
mhm.
know cocaine was big amongst the rich. If you had cocaine, you would get off. But if you had crack, your ass was going down, you know? And it was like, why? Why? Because there was agenda behind it. So all the people, we hear a lot of people who would have these conspiracy theories growing up, right? And people be like, yeah, whatever, blah blah blah. But now you actually see how these conspiracy theories that people have been talking about, now it's coming out. Now it's
Mhm.
in your face. Now you can't shy away from it. Now you can't say, "Oh, it's not true." Oh shit. This has been what's been going on. They have this guy that was, like, on one of President Bush, the first Bush's team, where they have him on tape talking about how all they did was basically change the terms. And I won't say the N word on here because, I don't want to be flagged by Facebook and shit. But they took that N word and changed it and started using these classier terms to talk about how they would basically do the same shit. So you couldn't openly be racist, right? Not until, like,
Mhm.
Trump came in. Trump came in, and then all of a sudden you can fucking be racist again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone had to have noticed that when Trump came in, it was like no one gave two fucks, right? Now we're just going to be the good old boys. And you hear Trump say it in a lot of his speeches, in the good old days. In the good old days, he talks about the good old days, which that's in the movie too. It just kind of shows that. So I want to ask you guys as viewers, how active are you in your communities? And is this even something that you think about in your community? Do you have to worry about this? Because guaranteed most of you don't. Guaranteed most of you guys don't think about this on a day-to-day basis. Guaranteed most of you guys don't think about the safety and lives of your family. Most of you, okay? Um, but when we're talking about, even on a spiritual level, if we take it and go to the spiritual level, and we're talking about oneness and togetherness, right? And this is what hit me last night was, when do we take that and practice it? We're all one, right? We're all one, and we're here to help each other. When do we take that and practice it?
I, I think it's hard. I mean, I feel like when it comes to people and just being 100% honest, um, the white people who have taken some sort of stand or that you will see that are willing to speak up are very much so appreciated.
Right,
But I still feel like there's slim and few
right,
who are willing to make somebody else's problem their problem.
right,
And I think it's really hard because there's still a lot of people who aren't willing. And it's not necessarily fair, but it is what it is. There's a lot of white people who are not willing to understand that in some ways there is still um, trust that has to be gained with minorities, even though they didn't own slaves, or
Right.
they aren't racist, or they aren't, their parents or their grandparents, or whatever the case is.
Right.
It's kind of like it kind of like we were talking about ancestral curses in a way,
Right.
because you still we to me, I still have that stigma of a white person, and
Right.
until they prove me wrong, that's what I think.
Right.
And I understand where people are like, but that I shouldn't have to live with that, and I shouldn't have to. But it is what it is, and it is what it is, right? Like, it's been hundreds and hundreds of years of this, and let's be honest. When did what was it, the 60s, or was it the 50s, that black children were finally allowed to go to white schools? Like, it was not that long ago. It wasn't
Like
even
almost the 60s.
right. Like, my mama wasn't here, or my grandma was here. Like, it wasn't that long ago to where they couldn't.
Right. My mom was here and it was
Right.
still very
So
segregated and very discriminative.
I understand where people come from, but so to be one is really hard when you still have people that aren't willing to um, accept the untrust that people have of them, or the feelings that people have of them,
Right.
even though it wasn't them personally.
Right.
It's still very hard. It's very, very hard
Right.
for anybody, and for anybody um, to not recognize the privilege that they have because of their skin color is something too. I think that's a trigger to a lot of people. So it's
Right.
hard to be one with somebody who doesn't see
Right.
it from the other way around.
Right. Because you can't relate. The bottom line is you can't relate. And no matter how much we sit here and try to act like we can relate or act like we understand, the same thing we say with everything is you will never understand what someone has to go through unless you have sat in their shoes and been who they are. You will never fucking understand. You can sympathize all day long. It will never hit you to the core until you are the one sitting in that seat and dealing with that type of situation. Um, I think one of the biggest things that irritated me last night watching it is because of the jargon that we use, right? This is one of the things in amongst, and I challenge anyone to get on here and say that they're not doing, even in the black community, the way that we're looking at it, right? We're looking at it and we're going back to just the slave shit, but we need to get past that to where we address what's going on today, not just okay slavery, but slavery then got changed and now look at what's going on. When do we address what's going on today? We want to talk about these things, right? And we want to bring it in, which is it's a very huge thing. But why are we not discussing what's happening today with the young men? Why are we not doing something with these young men who are being incarcerated for no fucking reason? You know, why are we not doing something now? Granted, there are a lot of states who do have reform now that, they started getting into reform to try to assist people and help people. Because the whole thing of one of the things that caught me on there where they were talking about reform, and even though you could do your time, you could pay your debt to society, but you would get out and that felony would follow you forever. That
Hmm.
little box on every application, every school loan, um, every government fucking assistance, right? Ask you about that felony. And the second you check that, nobody wants to
Right.
fucking be with you. Even though you've paid your debt to society, even though you fucking served your time, and now you're out, and now society's like, yeah, but now you're the low class citizen. Of course. So what do you do? What is really out there for you after that? Right? How are we truly helping people? And I just, that's the stuff that started to like very like irritate me watching this. It's just like at we 2021 and we still don't have a clear direction. But why? Because these jails are now private owned. Why? Because it, just like we say, there's more money to keep you sick than heal you,
Mhm.
right? So same thing, there's more money in keeping you incarcerated than fucking actually help you and reform and assist you into doing better into your life. We put all this money. If you look at the private sector of fucking prisons, and you just was like, why don't you guys put that money into the fucking communities? Like, why does, oh, there's no money in that? you know can't make
Mhm.
money off of you guys if you're not going to fucking jail. And that's the part that fucking irritated me the most. So as a community, when do we get savvy, right? When do we say, okay, how the fuck do we climb out of this hole of poverty and repression and discrimination, and how do we climb this ladder to where you actually can make some change? That's what I'm like. Where the fuck do you start? I love the protests, and I love the people that are getting active, and I love the people that are, out there on the streets, per se. But what else? What else do we got?
I don't know. I think that's been the burning question forever, and I know I'm gonna ruffle a few more feathers here and say that the gay and lesbian community has gotten way further than the black community has on rights, on civil rights.
Yes.
And they didn't really start, I mean, not to say they weren't wrong, but they didn't start popping out the woodwork until what, 30 years ago, 40 maybe is when 30, 40, the 80s, really?
Well, when I was watching this thing around the same time, they were the civil rights. At the same time, you had gays were fighting for their rights, and you had kind of, it was another group, women. I
Women,
was like,
yeah.
there's another group. There was women's rights. It was Black African American civil rights, and you had the gay population that were kind of all. But of course, they were attacked in different ways. So of course, if you we just know, if we look at it, if you were white, you weren't getting repressed as like the fucking
Hmm.
African American community. Let's be real. But we do know, and we can go. This could be a whole nother show. We do know eventually with the AIDS epidemic, we see it hugely where this population got attacked or hit. We won't go into that, right? But going back to just when you look at a whole fucking culture, right? It sucks. And it's like we have to be very honest with ourselves about it. And there's no fucking way to go around it. And you can't sit back and say that we have gotten that far, because we haven't. I don't see
Um,
where we've gotten far in equal opportunities, in equal rights, and actually where, and it's crazy because I remember, like I said, I remember when the Trayvon Martin shit hit. I was like a year in Orlando, and I remember me and my daughter having this conversation, like, we will have to train them to fucking survive. And it's crazy because, you already have to train your children as a minority in the fucking hood to survive. But then you got to tack on surviving the very people that should protect you, or the very people that should have your back. And then that's a whole nother fucking list of shit that you have to teach your children. How the fuck do you go through life with that type of anxiety and that type of fear, right?
I think well, I don't know because I'm not my kid. Uh, but for my kids, in some way, they didn't too much. It wasn't fear or anxiety anymore. It was normal. It was
Right,
normal. They just like
right,
they would still go outside and do whatever they did, but they knew they kind of knew what was going to, like, even before, like, I know they would always hang out at this bus stop, but it was because the bus stop was across the street from a rec center and a library. But it was like one of these major bus routes where all the buses kind of came. So they would kind of hang out there, and like immediately when they would see the police that would come just to come through the bus stop, they already knew what to do. You know what I mean? Like it was normal. Like everyone, and not to say that it's right or wrong, but whoever did have anything, I mean, let's be honest, kids smoke weed. You
Right.
know, they do that. They run around and they so whoever had the blunt threw the blunt under the chair, and everyone would put their hands up. Or so they already knew
Right.
exactly what to do, and it wasn't fear based or anxiety based. It was now a part of their routine, a part of their everyday life, right? And
Right.
it's
Right.
not even scary anymore. What did get scary is what brought a lot of anxiety to my son that's in high school, um, was when we moved to Texas
Mm.
and we were around all these Indian people and all these white people because my kids have never been around that, and they didn't know. They've never, they
Right.
just were out of their element completely. That was really a big change for them. Um, and so I'm kind of glad I moved again where I did because we're way more diverse, even 8 miles down the road than we were over there. But I think that was huge. And I think a big part of it is going to be education
Right.
and minorities taking political stance and
Right.
um, positions,
Right.
because until they become a person of power, they're only a voice, and nobody seems to listen to the voice.
No, not
Nobody,
unless there's
not
destruction
unless
with it.
yeah, not unless you're tearing something up behind it, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Which is sad. So I think, and the thing is that you can easily repress a group of people by not allowing them adequate education.
Right.
And although we are saying that um, the integration of schools happened back in 60s, 70s, whatever, we are still living in a time of segregated schools.
Yeah.
My children cannot go to, even down here, my children cannot go to a really great school because we're not in the right neighborhood.
Right. They zone. They start the zoning shit.
Now
You
you're zoning me.
per
Now,
your zip code, you have to go to this school, unfortunately, and that school could be the
even
shit.
if I drive you, even if I
Right.
send you in a fucking limousine, if I
Right.
send you in, it don't matter. You can't go.
Right.
And so so now they're just, I feel like they find ways around it. And it's
Right.
very easy to repress a group of people if you can't give them the education that they
Right.
need to further themselves.
Right.
And that goes with prison or anything else.
Well, I was gonna say that
How many educated black people are in prison, you
right
know?
when you one of the biggest things is taking your voter rights away, right? Because then you can't do shit. You can't vote. What happens with felonies and going to jail and stuff? All that shit is stripped away from you. That takes away so many fucking voices. And so I think that's where parents have to get vigilant, to where it's not about just don't go to jail because we want you to be successful in life. It's no, don't go to jail so that when you turn 18 you can fucking make a big impact on where you're going. There, we have to be vigilant in some way to reshape it, because most of the younger population, especially minority, we grow up in areas where it's like, fuck it, I'll go to jail, who cares, you know? Like, oh
Hmm.
well. Oh well, not until you get older. When you get older, you see like, fuck, there's so much shit I can't do now. There's so much shit now. My name is fucked up. I have no rights now. Can't get a passport to save my life. Couldn't fucking do shit. You know, once you get that felony, it's done. It's over for you in so many ways, right? So we have to be vigilant in some ways to say, the next generations coming up gotta be smarter. We gotta be smarter in some way, where they're not just like, oh well, this is it, this is life, and I may or may not end up dead, or I may or may not end up in jail. That's what I mean. Like, where the fuck do we begin? Like, where do we start? Where do we change this? You know,
Hmm.
and that's probably my biggest thing that was hitting me last night is like, I don't want to just teach these boys how to fucking survive. I don't want to just teach them that. I don't want that to just be that, oh, okay, then we're just going to teach you how to survive if you get stopped. We're just going to teach you how to behave if you get stopped. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but what else? The fuck else do we do for our kids? You know, and these are things I never had to think about with my girls because they were girls. I never had to think about that. Girls are treated different. Women, women, we complain all day long about how we don't have equal rights and this, that, and the third, but man, we do not get treated the way men get treated,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the fucking minority community. And that's something that we women we have to be honest with ourselves. We can talk about equal pay, and that's a whole nother show that we could talk about all this shit, but we don't get half the fucking slack that men do. We
No,
don't.
not at all. Not at all.
Good morning, Victoria. So, I'm telling you, if you haven't watched 13th, it was on Netflix, but I saw it on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube. I'm actually going to put it in the description after the live. But
I
if you
sure was gonna say I know you wasn't watching TV.
yeah, it wasn't on Netflix. It popped up on my YouTube. So you guys, I'm a big documentary person, and I have to tell you that I did start crying watching it. I was crying
Same
because
as mine.
my daughter, even my daughter, you guys see me, unless you've seen my daughter, you know my daughter is darker than me, way darker than me, okay. My mom is darker than me. Me and my brother happen to come out light like my dad.
Was it just 13? Just
It
that's
just
it.
said 13th. I'm gonna drop the link in the comments right quick because I still have it up. It was up because it was the last thing I watched, and I actually went to bed after that because I just could not. I couldn't function after watching that. I was just kind of hurt watching it. It made me sad. It made me sad. And I'm looking at my grandkids, and I'm like, they're so innocent and loving, but the shit that they're gonna have to deal with when they in a couple years,
It is. It's still on Netflix.
you know the shit that they're going to have to deal with in a couple years, it hurts me in a way that I just can't fucking explain. I can't explain it. Hurts my heart. And watching that just made me realize how interconnected, because there were a lot of things I didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand the laws and rules, how our lovely presidents, right, took these laws in because of all of these fucking capitalists or slave owners, basically, and how they took the laws and changed it and switched it up to benefit them. And then year after year, you see so many people like, get over it, you guys should be past it, slavery
Mhm.
was, fucking whatever 100 years ago. But we never got past it. Slavery never truly ended. It just got switched and the words got changed.
Mhm.
So everyone, you guys gotta fucking wake up. You gotta wake up and stop telling yourselves that slavery ended. It didn't. It did not fucking end. Okay? Just got changed a little bit to the times, that they changed with the times and the wording. And it's sad that we have been so fucking clueless for so long, and it's sad that how we can, if it's not hurting us, we don't give a fuck. And that's, I think, what bothers me the most. I think that's what bothers me the most. Good morning, Lucinda. You know what? One of the things that I always want to do on this show is bring you real ass shit, real ass conversations, and we can have all kind of conversations. One of the biggest things that I feel like we have to start talking about is the shit that we don't talk about, the shit that's swept underneath the
Mhm.
rug. And we just go on to our day-to-day lives because, my bills, my this, my life, my this. um but if we don't do something, if we don't change the way that we vibe and get active, this shit goes on and on and on. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you get some. I think the people who aren't. I think I think the white people who are trying to be active, or they are more active in this situation, actually understand and do want that change. Um, I'm just going to be 100% honest and say that when I see a white person who takes no stance or no action, not saying that they have to be out there and protest,
Right.
but there's absolutely no stance, or you can't even speak up for something that you see.
Right.
Um, I still feel like there's a lot of white people who speak a change, but I feel like they don't care.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal to them. It's not their children. It's not them. They're more of the mind your business kind of people, and it's not their
Right.
business. It's not their children's business
Right.
until you get a grandkid, and then everyone's like, "My grandkid is black." Like, whatever. We all know how that goes. You probably didn't want
Right.
it in the first place. Let's be honest, but that's
It,
just my
it's
opinion. And
it's
so then that's what it takes. But I think that's what it is that there are people. I think it'll come slowly, but I still think that I think there's a mix between racism and classism nowadays. I don't necessarily feel like it's all racism anymore as much as it is classism, because you still have to hold a group of people down in
right.
order for you to maintain your status, even if that is just a middle class status. In
Right.
order for you to maintain your middle class status or your upper class status, you have to hold a group of people down.
Right.
And if you can hold the already fucked up minority people down, the uneducated people down, um, then those aren't their problems. That's not in their neighborhood.
Right.
And so even like out here in Texas, they've done shit to where you if you're a minority and you have any kind of assistance, there's certain areas you can't even live in out here. And they find easy ways to do it, like there's incomes that you have to meet or blah blah
Right.
blah.
Right.
And so now it's not even technically about race, but now we're completely diluting a whole sector of people because of income and because of
Right.
what you
Right.
feel like they can or can't afford.
We see that all over with just the skyrocket of rent alone. And
Mhm.
you see there are way
For a
more
purpose.
minority groups that have three or four families living together because you can barely fucking make the rent and bills on your own. And that we know is not, that shit just didn't pop up. Again, people, this is where we have to wake up, right? This is where we have to wake up and kind of look at shit for what it is, because this shit is happening. We don't see it because we're not seeing the actual slave days, but it is happening out there. Because if
Mhm.
we talk about this all the time, someone who makes $20 an hour, that ain't shit after fucking taxes, you know. And when I was in the working class, I was at that point of $20 an hour, but after fucking taxes, after medical, after FICA and fucking all of this other shit that was taken out, it was like, what the fuck did I really bring home? You know, what did I really bring home at the end of the day? So, you know, it may not be the same type when we think about slaves, right? But we're still being oppressed in some way, shape, or form, you guys. And if you don't look at that and see that, and I will challenge you, the thing about it is, I want to say is, we can sit here and say we need more white people, we need more Hispanic people to jump on, but I would tell you there's not enough Black Americans fighting for the cause. Okay, there isn't. Because I was raised in a Black community, and unfortunately, again, it's still, you could be right next door and you will sit and be like, damn, that's fucked up, but that's it. When do you join the crusade?
I think people just get numb to it.
But that's the
And they
problem.
feel like they can't be changed. I mean,
That's the problem. That is
there
part of the
hasn't
problem.
been, so until somebody comes up with the solution of change, you're kind of stuck.
Right.
And
It's like this endless shit of, what the fuck do we do? How the fuck do we change this? You know? Um, but getting active is going to be one of the things. Not just
I
turning.
wonder how because I know you've talked about getting your own piece of land and doing your own thing, right? But do you think do you would you find a problem if um, say the United States finally decide to uh, pay out some money, right? I don't. What do you call it?
The
Repercussions,
reparations for the
reparations.
reparations, right?
Pay out some reparations and give minorities their own land to do their own thing and build their own city and do. Do you think that's a form of um, segregating,
I
or do you
think.
think it would
Well,
work?
okay, so let's say the state is like, yeah, we're gonna do this and we're gonna give you land, right? And we're gonna. I don't. To me, I don't believe that will help. I think some people in the moment it will help, but I think we have to look at the bigger problems. I think we have to look at the bigger problems and the long term effects of the problems, right? We can look at it because even when slavery was done, you had a lot of working class um, Black Americans, and then their cities got what? Got demolished, got fucked up,
Mhm.
cracked, whatever the
But
fuck.
they were thriving. Oh no, I thought you were talking about.
No, before everything got crazy, they actually had these thriving Black communities.
Yeah,
They had these working class. They were trying to buy homes or buying homes, not even trying. They
they
were
had
buying
their homes.
homes, right?
Yep,
And then what
they
happened?
found them.
Men
Well,
were being taken away, started being put in jail for no fucking reason, right? The men were gone, then the women had to start working, and then we could go on and on about what happened. So let's say, they get this land. Then what rule is behind that? Because we see, and I know the show is not about Native Americans, but we see what happened with that. They gave, oh, we're going to give you some land, and then we're going to give you some fucking rules of if you're not a certain percent of Native American to keep your land, to keep your land. You know what I mean? Like,
mhm.
what the fuck? What are they really going to do with that? Do you think it's just going to be like, oh, here's your free land? I highly doubt that.
I don't think it's about here's your free land. I know for Native Americans, I know there's some reservations that still have no running water. Um,
Right,
we've seen a lot of those when we went to Arizona,
right,
those little
right.
places.
Were horrible,
But
horrible.
there are some that are very much so thriving, very very thriving, especially ones with casinos. Hate to say it, but yeah.
Of course,
Um,
the casino is bringing in the money. We know how gambling is, right? But what
and
if it's like that, and then you don't have running water, and then it's just like it's not even we're that's a whole nother show because I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's okay
yeah,
at all. But not
but
to
I
say that they
just
shouldn't pay something out or give land or something, but I just don't think it would be. I don't think they would do it out of the kindness of their heart to truly change something.
I don't think they would ever do it out of the kindness of their heart,
I think there would be
but
something stipulated, something attached to it where, you know what I mean?
Carlene, I get what you're saying, but it's not about being put against each other, and it sure isn't about vaccinations, and that's hard for me because I still don't think you get it.
Yeah,
It's not about being put against each other. Um,
yeah. That's a whole nother show.
that yeah,
That's a whole nother show. I would
that's
say
not
definitely watch the 13th because what we're talking about today is specifically Black America. Okay, specifically this group of people, and if you're Afro Latin, you understand what we're talking about because if you're Afro Latin, you went through it. My mom is Afro Latin. She was born in the 50s. Her birth certificate says Negro. They didn't even recognize that she was Hispanic or came from Cuba. Or none of that. Didn't recognize any of that. She was labeled Negro. That's what's on her fucking birth certificate. Born in 1950. You were either black or white. So this isn't that long ago that we're talking about. And of course, in the Black community, it's a huge fucking problem. And we're my thing is this voice today in this show is to get this out of what can we do as a community together to change stuff. We can sit and go on vaccinated and all this shit, which is a whole nother show. We could talk about that because there's problems in every sector of this world in some way, shape, or form. Again, if we go back to it being a capitalist world, right? The capitalists want to make money off of us. So when you're looking at vaccines, that's a whole nother shit. Same thing as a whole fucking population culture that's targeted for profit. I
Hmm.
mean, let's be fucking real. Out of all the groups out here, Black America, Afro Latin is targeted for profit. Now,
Oh
we
yeah.
don't think about that because it's changed, it's not slavery. But if you think of all the free labor, and it's crazy of how many companies, now this is what I didn't know watching that, is how many companies utilize the private jails for their shit.
Hmm.
From big
Bob
name,
Barker is rich.
fucking big name brands get their shit. In Idaho, your fucking potatoes, guess who's packing them potatoes for you?
Oh yeah.
Prisoners. Prisoners are shipping your motherfucking Idaho potatoes to you, okay? If you didn't know that.
It's
But see, the
huge.
thing is, we never do no fucking research on the shit. We just go buy shit. We just go buy shit because that's where we're consumers. We never look into where it's coming from or how it's made or how it's created. Still created. And we talk about sweatshops. People will get fucking mad. Like when Nike had that big old thing and people were like, oh my God, Nike has all these fucking sweatshops and shit. Where the fuck you think half of this shit is sweatshops? Prison labor is a sweatshop. You got people who are making less than minimum wage, no matter if they're incarcerated or not.
They're making about 25 cents an hour to a dollar. I think that's the highest paid wage I've ever heard of in prison was a dollar.
We know that they're making money off of the call system in the prison. You know how
Yeah.
much money they fucking make off the call system in a prison?
Girl, I don't even want to talk about it.
There's
That's
all of
sad
these
in itself.
there's all of these factors that none of us give two shits about because it's not our life. We don't have to
Mhm.
care. Oh, no, I'm not paying it, right? I'm not paying it, so it's not my life.
The sad
And
thing is nobody wants to write. Nobody would want to invest in that, right? But the money you can make invested in that to invest in the stock of prison alone is
right,
crazy. And Bob Barker is rich as fuck. Bob Barker makes their clothes, their shoes, their
mhm,
hygiene products, their
mhm,
brushes, their
right,
toothbrushes. There's nothing that Bob Barker doesn't fucking make for these fucking people.
right.
Not
So,
a fucking thing. He's rich off of plastic shoes and
right. It's a
underwear.
business. It is a business. Jail is a fucking business. And to sit back and act like we don't see this. And the worst thing about it is I'm not mad that they decided to make jails private sectors or people started, that. What irritates me about it is that we don't correlate the two. We don't correlate the two of the high percent of fucking minorities in jail with the private sector and the capitalist
Mhm.
push to have inmates. Like that's what we just are asleep. So when we're talking about awakening and all this stuff, and I mean, yes, we've been in the spiritual path, but fuck, if we don't need to wake up in this fucking 3D reality, then we're just as asleep as everybody else. We can sit here and talk about spiritual awakening, speaking to dead people all day long, but if we don't fucking start to address some shit that we're dealing with right here in the 3D reality, how the fuck do we get to the united world or 5D, 7D? You know what I mean? Where the fuck how do we get there? You cannot sit here and say it's not my life. Well, I don't got to deal with it.
I don't, I had a couple epiphanies yesterday. I don't think there is one. That's just me. I don't think there is a 4D, 5D. I think there is a 3D that nobody wants to recognize. I don't think anyone wants to be here. So we put it off and we try to fucking exist somewhere else where everything is kumbaya and flowers and energy and positive vibes. And that's not reality at all for a lot of people. And
Right.
it won't be, I don't think, for a long time for a lot of people. Um, it's nice to stay there. It's nice to think that, but I just don't. It's like, kind of like what was that damn dial up internet where you had to go from 2.0 to 3.0 to 4.0? We're not fucking there yet. As people, we're just not. You
Mhm.
like to think about it, but it's not. I heard Canada's a whole different place.
I
They
know.
won't even let me in Canada.
I know. I work with a doctor from Canada, and it's crazy that even she was just like, when she moved here, she's just like, I can't, even in just the healthcare system. Like, so I say it's a whole nother conversation. She was just like, how they do things here. It's not about treating. It's not about helping people. It's all about money. It's money. It's a push of money. And unfortunately, in America, where we are, it is a very, very push of corporations getting rich
Mm-hmm.
off of the backs of the minority community. Okay. And we can touch the healthcare system. That's a whole nother one of getting rich off of people. But even in there, you see a very high minority community that is sick, that is with diseases and diabetes and shit like that. Not to say there's no white people with diabetes, because I know somebody will come for me later. But
Like, I got it.
I think that my biggest point today is that yes, all lives matter, Carlene. I'm not against you with that. But in this segment, we are talking about the Black and Afro Latin community, because it is not paid attention to enough until there's a news story about it.
Yeah.
Right. And in the news story, we're all assuming and we're all judging and we're all talking shit about what we think we know or what we don't know, whatever the news has told us, whatever propaganda comes after that. And the biggest thing is that I will encourage you guys to get active in your communities. If you truly want to fucking help, you're going to need to step out of your box, of your comfort zone of just going to work, dealing with your family, and then going home. Okay. You're going to need to step out of your comfort zone, and you're going to need to actually step out into your community and say, how can I help the community? Because guaranteed, the day that something happens to somebody in your family, you're going to be feeling a certain kind of way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is when you'll give a fuck. That is when you'll want to see change. And that is when you'll really want to get your hands. And I've been sitting for a long time trying to think and wonder, how am I going to get active in my community? We've been talking about this for a long time, of now that, everything's kind of been opening and up. How can I get active in my community? Where do I start in my community? And so I think I've come across where I'm going to start in my own community. But I do feel like we have to get out of this, to think that our life